Hello everybody and welcome to another video. Now I've got a bit of a weird one today because we're going to be looking at a band that I didn't know existed, but I'm also a big fan of. Does that make sense to you? Let me explain. Now we're going to be looking at a band called Nocturnus A.D. Now I didn't know this band existed until only a couple of hours ago, and they popped up as a suggested page for me to follow on Facebook. However, Nocturnus A.D. is the reformation of an old band called Nocturnus, which I was a huge fan of back in the early 90s. So I never knew this band existed, but they're made from a band that I used to be a huge fan of. So obviously I had to find out about this band because they've actually released material that I wasn't aware of. So that's what I'm going to be looking at today. Now, I've got a bit of information on the background of the band. There's quite a lot of it to cover. So we'll jump into it. It says, Nocturnus was an American death metal band formed in Tampa, Florida in 1987 by drummer and vocalist Mike Browning, formerly of Morbid Angel. They were known for their science fiction-themed lyrics and use of keyboards, both of which were pretty much unheard of in extreme metal at that time. The band was formed by Mike Browning following the breakup of his old band, Incubus. The band was formed by Browning, Gino Marino, and former Agent Steel bassist Richard Bateman. The band eventually began working on material and added second guitarist Vincent Crowley. The first lineup recorded one self-titled demo in 1987. Crowley then quit, going on to form Acheron, and was replaced by the then unknown 18-year-old guitar prodigy Mike Davis, who was also Marino's cousin. Bateman quit shortly after that to join Nasty Savage. Nocturnus then added new bassist Jeff Estes and keyboard player Louis Panzer in 1988. Panzer's addition made the band quite unique in the death metal scene, and provided the band with an atmosphere and enhanced their increasingly science fiction-based lyrical content. The lineup put out the Science of Horror demo, and in 1989 Marino quit and was replaced by David's longtime friend and neighbour Sean McNenny. So they've gone through a hell of a lot of band members by this point, and they haven't even released an album. With both Davis and McDenney being highly technical players, their often dueling and very fast guitar solos became another focal point of the band. In 1990, they released the first album, The Key, with a drummer Browning on vocals. Now, that's something I've always found amazing, is drummers who sing. But drummers who sing death metal whilst playing, that's just mind-boggling to me. I mean, playing a guitar and singing at the same time is hard enough, but playing drums and singing? Anyway. Then in 1992, they released Thresholds with Dan Izzo. It's either Izzo or Itzo on vocals. So, you know, from the first album to the second album, they've changed vocalists already. Now, Thresholds was the first Nocturnus album that I heard, a specific track called Climate Control, an absolutely fantastic piece of music. After Thresholds, the band then went on hiatus in 1993, reforming in late 1999, with pretty much the same lineup, except Dan Itzo had left, so the vocals went on to Emo Maori. So now all three of their albums have had different vocalists. So yeah, in 1999 they released Ethereal Tune. In the middle of 1999, however, Mike Browning and Richard Bateman and Gino Marino, three of the original lineup of Nocturnus when it was first created, reformed as Nocturnus A.D. With Mike Wachowski on guitar, replacing Vincent Crowley, the only member not to return. The name of the band was then changed to After Death in 2000, so it would not be associated with the original Nocturnus band. You know, this is basically them making a whole new band from the ashes of what the band used to be, because now Nocturnus at that point didn't actually contain any of the original members of the band. It was a completely different band now. And they released a number of demos under the name After Death, along with a compilation, Retronomicon, in 2007. The band again performed as Nocturnus in 2013 for a few selected shows, though they didn't do so many in the US due to copyright issues, apparently. In 2013, Nocturnus A.D. was then reformed with the same lineup as After Death, and released the album Paradox in 2019. And this I didn't know about. You know, I didn't know the band had reformed as Nocturnus A.D. I didn't even know they'd reformed as After Death. You know, after Ethereal Tomb, I thought they'd just sort of disappeared, and you know, I never actually thought to check up on them. And you know, then it popped up on my Facebook page. You know, look at this band Nocturnus A.D. and you know, I looked at it. They had the same logo as the original Nocturnus, so I thought I'll have a look. And it turns out it's the same band. So I've gone off and I've actually gone and bought Paradox now. I bought it off their Bandcamp because you know I've got the first 3 albums. Might as well have this one as well. I'm going to get the After Death one as well. And I looked them up on YouTube and found a video for Apotheosis, which is one of the tracks off Paradox, and that's what I'm going to have a look at today. I do have the lyrics here. Hopefully they're going to be accurate. So I have been talking for quite a while now, but there was quite a lot of information to go through on this band. So we'll jump into the song now and see what we get. So, Apotheosis by Nocturnus A.D. Here we go. Well, there we go. Apotheosis by Nocturnus A.D. And that is such a... What's the word I'm looking for? I can't think of the word I'm looking for. It really takes me back nostalgic. It's so nostalgic because it sounds pretty much identical to the first Nocturnus album, The Key. Now, when I first heard Nocturnus, like I said, the first album I heard was Thresholds. It took me bloody forever, and I mean forever, to get a hold of a copy of The Key. It was very hard to find. But, you know, between The Key and Thresholds, there is a very distinct difference in the vocal style. You know, the Key has got a vocal style more similar to what you heard there. In fact, that, like I said, that sounded practically identical to what the Key album sounds like, whereas Threshold had a more harsher vocal style. It had a lot more death metal sound to the vocals. But you know, I still really enjoy all of the albums. Ethereal Tomb was a bit of a questionable one to me, but you know, I still really enjoyed it. But hearing that, it just takes me right back to hearing like the original Nocturnus. It sounds great. And like I said at the beginning, a lot of their music is based around science fiction and things like that. You know, I always associated them with Warhammer 40k. I mean, even the front cover of the Key album, it looks like a Space Marine from Warhammer 40k on the front cover. But anyway, you know, so all the albums, I believe they're all, you know, I believe they all sort of tell a story in their own way. And in this one, as even the video suggested, you know, he's talking about traveling through space and you get sort of captured or abducted by these alien life forms, and they like show him all this information that he's never known, you know, give him a wealth of knowledge so that he can, from what the lyrics describe, it sounds like they're preparing him so he can rule over a certain planet or part of the galaxy or whatever until they come back to reclaim it. You know, they're sort of putting him to rule in their stead whilst they're off probably conquering other parts of the galaxy. That's what it sounds like. And the lyrics go. Travelling through time and space through a portal in the hidden place, I opened the gate and let them in for a new era to begin. But first I will be taken to the space between our normal view. Breaking through the seals of fate as they lead me through the gate, being taken to a strange land from my empire in the sand. I am now the first to see alien landscapes in front of me, unknown shapes I can't describe, twisted structures come alive. As they take me to a room, I will find the answer soon, why they brought me here to see things that should never be. They put me in a strange machine and showed me things I've never seen. They bestowed their knowledge into me and prepared me for what I am to be. In this state of my auto-glorification, for the act of raising my exaltation, at the apex of my culmination, for the second coming of my deification. Now they bring me back to rule over all the human fools, preparing for the time when they will come to take their place again. So they're basically giving him like infinite knowledge and placing him in a position of power, like deifying him, making him a god amongst humans, as it were, and putting him in place to rule these people until this alien race decides to come back and take rule back into their own hands. That's what it seems to be talking about. And obviously with science fiction, you know, it's a little bit on the cheesy side. And, you know, the video itself also a little bit on the cheesy side. Some pretty good CG, although right at the beginning it kind of looked a bit like Lawnmower Man. But that just might have been the over-reflective surface on the character. But, you know, a bit of a cheesy video, but it really does take me back to the real early 90s when I first heard Nocturnus, you know, and it reminds me, you know, it sounds so much like the first album. It's really amazing. You know, the sound of the band has hardly changed. The way the band name is written, the logo with that inverted pentagram with the lightning bolt through it, it's all the same as it was with the original band. They've just added AD at the bottom to make it, you know, to separate the two. So yeah, I really like that. It was very nostalgic for me, you know. Um, Given that it still sounds very sort of like their 1990 stuff, it might not appeal to newer audiences. I don't know, but I really like it because it just takes me back to when I was like 10, 11, 12 years old, when I first heard Thresholds. So a bit of nostalgia for me, and I've now discovered that the band still exists, which I'm quite happy about. So, like I said, I went out and um, bought the album. Can't remember what it's called now. The Paradox album. I went and bought that from their Bandcamp page immediately after finding out who they were. And I'm going to go and see if I can get hold of that Retronomicon from After Death as well, just to keep the collection complete. So, I really don't know what else I can say on that, so I'll leave it as it is. Now, if anybody would like to suggest a track for me to react to, then please do so by all means. Drop a comment in the comment section below, or message me on my Facebook or my Instagram, or you could even message me through my Patreon, where you could also help to support this channel, which would of course be a great help to me, since all of the content I create gets instantly demonetized, so I make absolutely nothing from any of the content that I create, which is kind of annoying, considering the copyrighted material that I use only makes up probably 1/3 at most of the content of my video. But that's just the way it is. And there is an option in Patreon where you can get your suggestion jumped to the front of the queue should you so desire to try and use that. There is a limit on how frequently you can do that. I think it's once a month, and that's just to be fair to other people who suggest tracks through more regular means like the Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram comments. Give them a fair chance of getting theirs looked at as well. If you do suggest a track through those more regular means, do know it could take me a while to get around to your suggestions, since I do get suggested so many new tracks every single day that my list grows faster than I can record the videos. But I do write down every suggestion I get, so it will get done eventually. It just might take me a while to get around to it. Also, MetalHead Reacts is a proud supporter of the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, a British-based charity whose main goal is to put an end to hate crimes, and one of the main facets of that is hate crimes against people of the alternative culture. And it's something I believe in very, very strongly, because it is something that I've had to deal with for most of my life, but it's also something that has been very widely ignored, sort of brushed under the carpet and pushed to the side as a non-issue. And that's something that needs to change, because it is a very real problem that has been going on for decades. And we're talking about real proper violent crimes. We're not talking about just name calling or being shoulder rammed as you walk down the street. We're talking about violent, brutal crimes where people are getting hospitalized with broken limbs and sometimes even more life-threatening injuries just because of the fact that they listen to alternative music. Every single day we hear about all these other hate crimes like sexism, racism, homophobia, transphobia, religious hatred, ableism, etc. We hear these every single day. From the most heinous and violent of these crimes, where someone is brutally murdered because of the colour of their skin, their sexual identity, or their religious beliefs, down to the most petty and pathetic of these crimes, where some entitled white woman is calling the police because a family of colour are having a picnic in a public space. We hear every facet of these every single day in every media platform you can imagine. We hear these all the damn time. But we never hear anything about these people from the alternative community that are getting attacked just purely for their taste in music and clothing. Last time there was any widespread coverage of this was 13, 14 years ago, when Sophie Lancaster and her boyfriend Rob Maltby were violently and brutally attacked and beaten, punched, kicked, and had their heads stamped on so violently that they both ended up in comas. Now, Rob Maltby, he did thankfully survive. He was in a coma for around about a week, maybe a bit longer. I can't remember exactly how long, but he did thankfully survive. Sophie Lancaster, on the other hand, was in a coma for 13 days before she succumbed to her injuries and she died. This girl she was 20 years old and was beaten to death because of her taste in music. And, as well as it should be, it was all over the news at the time. Several weeks, months, however long, it was all over the news, and then eventually faded away. But in the 13 to 14 years since that happened, we've not heard anything similar. But in that 13 to 14 years, I know for a fact there have been several hundred, if not several thousand, similar attacks that have taken place, and nothing has been said. And one of the main reasons for that is because no one's died, and that is disgusting. It's unacceptable. We shouldn't have to wait for someone to lose their life before this sort of thing gets spoken about. Just a couple of years ago, in Glasgow, Scotland, not far from where I live, there was a young woman running a charity gig. And during the evening, at one point, she had to leave the venue where she was hosting the gig and go to her home for whatever reason. And it was a 5-minute walk away. In the time between leaving the venue and getting to her home, she was attacked twice by the same group of people and brutally beaten, kicked, punched, knocked to the ground, and beaten more. Now, thankfully, a passing taxi driver put an end to the attack and she managed to escape and get away. He didn't check to see if she was okay. She didn't get any help until she got back to the venue where all her friends were. But, if that passing taxi driver had not been there, that young woman could very easily have gone the same way as Sophie Lancaster. This young woman could very easily have been beaten to death. But we didn't hear about this in the news. There was no reports on this anywhere. I didn't find out about this. And I only live I can walk 4 miles to Scotland. And I didn't hear anything about it. I didn't hear anything about it until I heard it from a friend who happened to be friends with the victim of the attack. And, he lives even further away from Scotland than I do. But this wasn't in the news. Why not? This young woman was brutally attacked by a group of people. One person against 4, 5, or 6 other people, constantly punching, kicking, and hitting. And it's not in the news. Why the hell not? You hear these reports about, entitled white women calling the police on a family of colour because they're having a picnic. And whilst, yes, that is a very, very bad thing to happen, that sort of thing is getting news time. And, nothing severe has really happened. It's just some racist showing off how racist they are. Whereas some young woman getting brutally beaten to within an inch of her life, that gets ignored. Where's the logic here? Which is the more newsworthy item going on here? Which is more important? Someone almost getting beaten to death, or the rampant racism that we're hearing every single day? Like I said, whilst it is bad, it's nothing new. But, ignoring it needs to stop. We can't carry on ignoring it, because by ignoring it, we're essentially letting the people perpetrating these crimes think they can get away with it. And if we carry on ignoring it, it's only a matter of time before what happened to Sophie Lancaster happens again, and we cannot allow that to happen. We can't allow it to happen again. It's something that never should have happened in the first place. And this is what the Sophie Lancaster Foundation is all about. They want to bring more attention to the fact that this is happening. The fact that it is a very real problem. It's a much bigger problem than people think it is. All over the world, every single day, hundreds of people from the alternative community are getting violently attacked just because of their taste in music. And it needs to stop. It needs to change. So if you'd like to find out more about the Sophie Lancaster Foundation, there is a link to their website in the description below. You can go over there, find out what they're working on at the moment, find out what their overall goal is. And if you can help them out in any small way, obviously don't feel obligated to do so, but if you can help them out in any small way, whether it's like a small donation through their website or something as simple as one of these Sophie wristbands you can get from their web store, they've got a whole bunch of other really cool stuff on there that you can have a look at as well. But the smallest amount can make the biggest difference. And the sooner we bring more attention to the fact that this is happening, the sooner we get more people talking about this, the sooner we can help to stamp out prejudice, hatred, and intolerance everywhere. But I'm going to leave that as it is for the time being. Thank you all very, very much for watching, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.